digital broadcast. I am your host, Professor Tuck. This is a show where we cut through the noise, dig into real world strategies, and remind you that freedom isn't free. But sometimes it is for sale. You just have to know where to look. So today's not your regular broadcast. This is a special quarterly sit down with one of the people that are actually doing work behind the scenes. Boots on the ground, no fluff, real deed in hand land ownership. We're talking about raw land, the kind that you can build on, bug out to, or pass down. In a world full of subscription fees and fake assets, dirt is one of the last things that you can still own outright. Our guest today is Stephanie from Open Air Properties. Welcome, Stephanie. She works directly with buyers looking for land in Arizona, Colorado, and Arkansas. Whether you're dreaming of off grid living, hedging against economic collapse, or just want a piece of something real, Stephanie's been quietly helping folks secure affordable parcels without a bank middleman, without corporate gains, and without needing a credit score. So, no sponsor speak today. This is about education, what to watch out for, where the best deals exist, and how to avoid rookie mistakes. If you've ever thought about land ownership or thought that you couldn't do it, stay locked in because you're about to learn a lot. And if you're watching live, drop your questions in chat. I already put something in there where if you want to ask a question, make sure that you put it in all caps. And because we're going to be pulling some of these questions directly for Stephanie during the second half of the broadcast. So let's bring her in. Welcome, Stephanie. How are you doing today?
How about you, Tuck?
Oh man, it has been life is a dream, and I'm just walking through it. So it's been pretty good. I just as far as things have been going. How did the Fourth of July go? Because I know you were running some awesome specials.
I'm so excited when people take advantage of those sales because they don't come around all the time. We did have quite a few people who bought properties during that time, and a number who just would not give themselves permission. And that's one of the challenges that we have in this business is giving permission to go after something that you want in your life. And that's what I really love about my business is the chance to help people make their dreams come true.
Kind of foreign to me. I'm stubborn and pig-headed, so when I want something, I go for it. I don't need anybody's permission. So explain that to me. Like, how is it that people feel that they need permission? Like, what is it about it that that causes them to hesitate?
Things. One is it's too good to be true. It's an online deal. I've never seen it. I can't buy it on sight unseen from a person who I've never met. There certainly is that trust factor. The second thing is people don't believe they're worthy of the things that they want in their lives. And I lived through this myself. I had several times because I never wanted to be in a corporate job. I actually quit my job three different times in my life. First one at age 24, the second no 25, I'm sorry. The second one at age 32, and finally again at age 54. And it took me the third try to make it stick because I had a belief that I had to work for somebody else for a living. And I would not give myself permission to believe that I was capable of doing this for myself and creating the life that I wanted. And that to me is summing up what it's all about when you're talking about buying land. People who have never owned land don't believe they can, and they don't believe that this is something that could be possible for them. And when you stop and think about what it costs and the point of entry and the communication that you can have with somebody like me, that's where it starts to shift because we're not a corporation that's going to say you miss one payment and you're out. I'm a person that says, I want to work with you. I really, really want you to own land because I believe in making people's dreams come true. And I believe in helping you to believe in yourself. And so when you have those moments where you think, well, I know that I can most of the time make it, but maybe there's a time around the holidays or a time around, the harvest season just before the season hits that I can't maybe make that payment. Those are the times that you get to work with a human being and be able to sort of bridge and communicate about those problems and work through them. And that's what makes this more doable.
Glad that it was able to stick at this age, because for those of you that don't know, that are just kind of coming along, I actually bought a piece of land from Stephanie. That was kind of how our relationship developed. But the experience was so amazing because I have experience reading and understanding contracts. It's been part of my job description and many things. And so being able to read that, and I still think that what sets you apart from every other person that's doing business is that you give a summary, which makes it easier for the person who has no legal understanding to be able to understand what it is that they're signing. And like, I was a little uneasy at first because like I'd never seen you, I'd never anything else like that. But once I saw that contract, I was like, dude, this is going to be a good deal. So I for those of you that are kind of hesitating and thinking of things like that, I definitely wouldn't hesitate, because Stephanie is going to be the most honest, most forthright person that you're going to come across. You'll, I part of the reason why I asked her to be a sponsor is because she does business better than anybody else I've ever seen. You can't buy an experience like this. So when you work with Stephanie in open air properties, understand that she's above board and she is legit. So that's something that you really don't have to worry about. But one of my questions that I have for you is, what are you seeing right now that's driving people to finally buy land? Is it the trade war? Is it economics? What is it?
I think there's a lot of people who don't want to be in the stock market who think land is a much better investment. That is for sure. The trade wars, certainly, because there's no cost of goods associated with our land. It's just the land, so there's no foreign taxes or tariffs on that. Um, I think there's a desire to, as you talk about all the time, just become more independent. Really, just have the ability to not be reliant on anybody else but yourself. And so, if you have your own piece of dirt, then you have the ability to say, this is mine, and I'm nobody's going to evict me out of my apartment, or, tell me I can't sleep on the bench, or whatever the situation is. And people also are really wanting to get out of the cities. The cities have become such a high speed, high stress kind of environment that to come out to these rural areas is just peace. It's just walk out of whatever you're living in on a Tuesday morning and have a cup of coffee and look at the sun and just say, "Wow, I don't have the pressure to be anywhere, to do anything, to fail at something today. All I have to do is just connect with this land and just be." And that's that you can't put a price on that.
I've only been here in Missouri for maybe 10 days, and I kind of miss the peace and tranquility of you. Like, my neighbor is 2 blocks over, and I still hear him, but it's like that's because he's yelling at his dog. But it's like when you're in a city, you're so used to having all that noise. Like, you live in an apartment, you get to hear your neighbors, you could hear a fly fart. It can be very stressful. And then once you get to that point where you go off grid, because you don't realize it when you're in the city, and then all of a sudden you get out there, and it's like the walls stop closing in on you, and you just get that tranquility. Yeah, that is definitely a truism when it comes to that. So my other question that I have for you is like, what is the number one mistake people make when they're waiting too long?
Every day could buy your land. Like, it's just really about your values and your choices and how much you want it. And I'm not saying that I don't want anybody to smoke. It's so weird that that just even popped out of my head. But what I'm saying is the hardest thing is making the choice for what you want. And we get into habits. Those habits cost money. And those habits are just mental brain waves saying, I've always done this, so I'm going to do it again today. This is what I do. I wake up, I go get my coffee, I go through McDonald's, I do this, I do that. And those habits aren't even important to us. They're just things that we do because we've always done them. And so when we identify that we really want something, it's not that hard to carve out the money in the budget, even if your budget is not very large. And because we do have the flexibility of affordable payments and we're constantly offering different kinds of sales and opportunities to meet what your particular budgetary needs are, you're going to find one that's going to work for you if that's what you want. And then it's just a matter of making that choice to say, this is what I really want, and believe in yourself.
Also got to think that, especially in Concho, I guess since I've been there, land has gone up by about $3,000 or $4,000 per acre. Um, it's not only are you redirecting your money, but it's yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, our vices tend to get the best of us, but $200.
Really a vice, enjoy it, I say go for it, enjoy that vice. But there are so many things in my life that I know are really just habits. Like, for instance, I eat graham crackers. I do not have a vice for graham crackers. It's just something that I eat every evening when I snack. I mean, when I sit down to end my day, I just go have a graham cracker. I could totally give up a graham cracker habit. Like, that's a habit, it's not a vice. The things that you enjoy, one example for me is I enjoy a Coke. I love Coke. I've tried to quit Coke because I don't feel like it's great for me, but I just love it, and when I could return to it after I've been off for a couple of days, I'm like, "Ah, I love this." So, yeah, it's a vice, and I'm fine with it, like, there's a difference. We have habits, and we have things that we truly, truly enjoy and get pleasure out of. In a bottle vice, but I really prefer it in a bottle.
Coke just so I could get unlimited Coke. But yeah, Coke is definitely.
With that, it's like, "Ah," I totally did the "ah" moment whenever I'd have a Coke in the heat.
It's a brand because, like, I was raised on Pepsi, but it just became too sweet, and I love the cinnamon taste in the Coke. So yeah,
I'm a Coke
it's
person.
yeah. So my next question is, like, what are the buying patterns of people? Like, are most of your customers more looking for off grid because they're preparing for like doomsday? Are they investors or are they survivalists like me? Like, what's your typical customer that comes in and gets land from you?
Call avatars that we've made. I'm just going to pull back the curtain and tell you a lot of our secrets today. So we have avatars there that we identify are the kinds of people that will buy, and we write our ads to connect with those people emotionally because we want them to feel like this is for them. So one of our avatars is going to be somebody like you. It's an off-gridder, an independent dweller, somebody who doesn't really want to be around people that much, who wants to have their own space, just wants to have their own piece of land and not have anybody mess with them too much. We have other people who are retirees who just want to live off their social security check and don't have a whole lot to work with, and they want to just find something affordable that'll work within that budget. Other people want to just have a place to go for a vacation at the lake. So we have the properties in Arkansas that are near 5 lakes, and they may want to just have a little cabin that they build, just something to get away for the weekend in the summers. Um, there are people who are RV living and they just really want to not have a house. They want to be able to live in their RV. Others are outdoor enthusiasts. They want to come out for the weekend. So I'm naming some of the avatars that we have, but we've got just a whole variety of different things. One of the most common trends that I'm seeing right now is the apartment living is too expensive. And I had this actually with my own child. My own child is kind of bouncing between our house and her boyfriend's house because she can't get qualified to live in an apartment. She has a job, she makes money, she's got money in a savings account, and the apartments will not qualify her because she doesn't make enough money to have credit. Well, we don't look at credit. We don't even consider credit when you're coming to buy land. We just say, if you can pay, you can play. And I do see a question in the chat about, first of all, how many pages in the contract, and that's 18 pages, and we'll tell you more about that in a few minutes. And then the second is, what's the interest rate on financing? And the interest rate is 0, because we want you to be understanding all the charges up front very transparently.
And it got me because I was actually expecting interest to be in my payment, and when I asked you, you're like, no, 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 we just this is the price, and it's like, I don't know. Are you familiar with the? It goes. History goes back to the collapse of 1342. There was a battle between the Catholic Bank and the Venetian banks, and it was over usury. Okay, so the collapse.
Like, how do you pull this stuff out? I just don't get it.
Burgers. It's by a former Spanish intelligence officer. His name's Daniel Estalon, and I've actually got to see some lectures on this. This is how I found out about it. But essentially, what was going on during that time is you had the Catholic Bank, which would charge fees because usury was considered a sin, and then you had the Black Venetian nobility, who did compound interest. And when the King of England defaulted on his loan to the second largest bank, which was the Venetian bank, it caused the whole system to collapse. But out of that, the fee based system, that was set up, went away, and that's how we got into compound interest. And so, as understanding like the pretext behind usury, it's like I'm still tickled pink that you don't charge the compound interest, because that makes it even harder and takes much longer to do it. So why did you choose not to do compound interest?
Used debt my entire life, and I call it good debt because I've always used it for things that I felt were relevant and um, going to continue to produce for me in the future. But I do use credit cards liberally, and I never ever allow myself to get into that 13%, 23% credit card stuff because it just eats you up. But I will do 0% all day long. I wanna do the same thing, like, I wanted to help people to have what I call good debt, and your good debt is that you are not gonna continue to chase this dream of owning your land one day forever. You're gonna have a finite day that it's gonna be done, and you're gonna own it, and you're putting it towards something that's tangible and gonna grow in value and price. And so it's just my value system that I price it understanding that I'm not gonna get my full money back until 3 or 4 years down the road, and so if you pay it off faster, we can talk about a different price because there is some surcharge of me waiting for my money built in, but it's very transparent to you and you know that when you're done, you're done.
It's one of the things that I like. So just out of curiosity, like, do you come out of pocket and buy the lands, or do you actually have to get financing for the land, yourself? So
We do both. We do buy the land ourselves outright, so we own the deeds for all the properties that we have, which is right now about 200 properties. And yet we also have investors that we work with. So those investors understand the business concept. Many of them are in the business themselves, and I'm an investor for other people as well. And so we invest back and forth with each other with different strategies depending on what our needs are. Like I have some money that's tied up in a 401k account that I can't invest in myself because the IRS does not allow that, but I can invest in someone else. So other people have money tied up in 401k and they can invest in someone else. So I invest in others, they invest in me. We understand, how that works, and we also monitor very carefully, how much debt I have versus the assets that I have so that I don't get in too deep. So we definitely use that leverage to support purchasing more properties. So I know how to liquidate our properties very quickly, and none of the ones that we would have sold would be liquidated, but that's not something that we're concerned about at all because we keep that very tight.
Another warm fuzzy to feel good about buying the property. Because yeah, I mean, oh, even on trail I got to see, I think it was Rite Aid went out of business, and I was talking to their employees. They're like, yeah, we're out of a job in 3 weeks. I mean, that there's when you start seeing large companies go down, you start going, oh. And so, it's always important to know that you've got a company that is strongly financially stable. So my next question for you though is, why do you focus on Arizona, Colorado, and Arkansas specifically?
Been trained through the land geek business. I'm gonna just, again, transparency. This is how I learned how to buy the properties and market and sell the properties, and even to do the research to support understanding what different counties require so that we do things the right way, like filing deeds and understanding what the restrictions are and stuff like that. And so they gave us a list. There's about 5,000 counties in the country. And they gave us a list to start with to say, these are the places where we work, and we've already vetted out what are the interesting aspects, what are the growth prospects, how easy it is to work with a county, what are the restrictions, what are the things that are appealing about it, like are they close to a major metropolis, that kind of stuff. And so we looked at our budget that we had to buy the properties at that time. And then we looked at all the possibilities and we started just researching. They taught us how to do that. And we found counties that we felt were growing that also matched our heart. So I love Arizona. I've been there several times. We've hiked around the area of the different areas of Arizona. One of my favorite places is Sedona, and I can't wait to get to Concho in October because I just know the White Mountains are going to be beautiful. I just cannot wait. At the same time, Colorado speaks to me. Those mountains are also gorgeous. And then Arkansas, we love trees. We live here in Georgia. We have woods all around us and we have a similar climate. But I also love the lakes and I love that the mountain water, the ice melts off the mountains and comes down and forms the lakes in Horseshoe Bend. So the geographics appeal, also the growth prospects, and we can talk it in more depth about that at some point. We're going to be putting some of that information on our website because we've done some research with ChatGPT, some deep research to identify where the trends are moving. California is having a massive exit, and the number two population coming into Arkansas right now is California. So people are moving from California into Arkansas. They're also moving, of course, to Arizona and Colorado because those would be obvious. And so we're identifying where populations are moving. And, it's not that we're wanting them to get crowded up, but we're saying there's a demand. There's a demand, and your value is going to grow of the property. So that's something that we study very deeply. My husband's a huge researcher. Not lakes. There's lakes in Horseshoe Bend, Arkansas, but the Colorado River runs right through Alamosa, and that is a problem. Like the water rights are a problem in Alamosa. So you have to have certain properties that will allow you to dig a well and tap into the Colorado River because the Colorado River actually feeds several states and provides water for several states. So, yeah, it's interesting that you asked that question. I don't know if you even knew what the challenges of Colorado water are, but they're pretty big.
There's about Colorado, and I know it comes down into Arizona. And when I was on my way into Holbrook, you actually pass through. It's called the Little Colorado. I think it's going up 183. So I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. The Colorado River does come through here." So yeah, I mean, I'm. This is actually a question that I get asked a lot because a lot of preppers, one of the things that they ask is is there any with water rights? So what about in Arkansas? You were talking about that having. How's the water rights there?
That we buy have city water. So you would be able to just call the water company and hook it right up. Now the difference is in Arkansas you have to build. So they don't allow RV living except for while you're building.
The infrastructure coming up, and the well, or like the pipes already coming up, so all you got to do is connect it. So okay, so you're closer into the city on these. You're not way out in the sticks.
It is rural, but Horseshoe Bend is a proper city. It does have city infrastructure. Now it doesn't have sewer. They do have some sewer in some parts, but not in most of the parts. It is septic, but they do have electricity and city water available, and also like trash pickup and the things that you would expect in a town um, are there.
Colorado, as far as like, is it as rocky as Arizona, or is it got a lot more? Is it more foresty with like pine trees and stuff?
And it's not as rocky. It's neither. It's more field like, so it is like wheat field kind of thing. I'm not sure if it's actually wheat, but it's going to be more that field view. It does not have the rocks because the reason why we have rocks in Concho is because of volcanic activity. So there's no volcano nearby, but they do have just wide open desert type plains. And the nice thing about Alamosa is that it's 10 minutes from the city of Alamosa. Most of the properties that we have are in one little subdivision, and they're 10 minutes from the city. And there's a full it's a town of 9,500 people. So you're able to be remote, but you're close enough to that you can just drive 10 minutes and be in a town. And then you've got the Walmarts and the grocery stores. You've even got the what's it called? Adams State University. So there's a college there where you can get jobs, and even take classes. And so there is much more industry in Alamosa.
Your opinion? Uh,
I, I wouldn't want to try because I would be blowing smoke at you if I even made an attempt. So I won't.
kinds of land deals are people overlooking because they think it's too rural or it's not developed?
Well, I hate this term. I'm going to just tell you straight up. But there's a very, very common saying in this land business that there's a pig for every barn. And I don't even know what that means. Like, I'm just like, what? Who came up with that? And how does somebody connect with that meaning something? But what it's intended to mean is everybody's got some reason to like land. Some people just want to own it, and some people want to have a mountain to climb on. Like some people are mountain climbers. So we have, all these parcels that we often buy sight unseen ourselves, and we've learned how to do a lot of research and we've learned about the areas, and so we buy with a lot of intention. But when you're first getting started, you don't know a lot, and so there's this fear of making a mistake. Oh, I bought a dud. It's kind of like it used to be with cars. You don't really buy dud cars too much anymore if you're buying them at a dealership or anything because they're manufactured in a very predictable way. That's not true with land. With land, you could, we had a house one time when we lived in Chicago that had been built on top of a stream. And so there was a stream running underneath our house, and then they built on top of it. Well, we didn't know that. There was no water in the yard. But what we found out was that when the snow melted, which happens every year in Chicago, the sump pumps would just get flooded. And so our basement literally flooded every single winter for 5 years. And finally, we said to our neighbor, we lived there 7 years. We finally said to our neighbor, why do we have such a problem with flooding? And he said, well, first of all, your yard is flat. There's no place for it to run off. And second, do you know that there's a creek underneath your yard? I was like, no. How would I know that? How would I know that? But every year in the middle of the night, we'd start bailing water because the snow would melt and suddenly we'd hear the sump pumps starting to flood and you go downstairs and there's like a foot of water. And it's like, again, here we are bailing water out with buckets. These are just things that happen when you make purchases. And with land, somebody will buy it. And what's nice about open air properties is that we do offer a free trade. So if you feel like you bought a dud and you get to the site and you say, I don't like this property, well, we try to have a deep bench of properties available in the area that we can say, oh, okay, you don't want the rocky one. Well, let's go find you one that has less rocks or a better view or better roads or has water and power available so that you can find what you need. So we try to have a wide variety of different properties, and we do allow one free switch without any penalty, and any money that you paid towards it would go towards the new property.
Was that's a great thing because when I first got to my land, that was the first thing. You're like, hey, if you decide you want to move, we'll give you, we can find you a different property. But for those of you that call up Stephanie, I'd recommend doing what I did and just trust Stephanie to put you in the right piece of land, because I told her, that my girlfriend at the time had goats. I told her that I was on foot. I explained to her my situation, and yeah, when we got there and on property, you could it took me a minute to sit back and to realize like all the cool things. Now when I look at that property, I'm like, this is the best piece of property I could have ever owned. But sometimes it takes a minute to sit on a property and get to know it. You can't, if you just kind of go and look at it and just kind of do a surface level, you'll never really understand all the benefits and all the amenities that come with it. Because I have this little area where it's a cliff, so where I could sit there with Sam and we can sit and look out over the valley, and I can smoke my cigarette and watch the sunset. It's absolutely beautiful. And if I wouldn't have taken the time and I would have said, oh, I want to go for flat land, I would have been missing out on probably some of the most majestic experiences I've had in Arizona for that. So, Stephanie is really good at finding a property for you, especially if tell her what your obstacles and what your limitations are. Because I mean, that is still like, I will be telling my grandkids about how awesome that was. Like my first piece of property, and the where I who I bought it from put me in the perfect piece of land and I didn't even know it. So for those of you that are thinking about that, just Stephanie really knows what she's doing. She's really good at helping you find a piece of property. So even if it is sight unseen, you just I would say trust in her enough to know that she's going to put you in probably the best piece of land you'll ever have. At least that's my experience.
You know, it is interesting now as we have gotten to know each other, and I look back to that first conversation. I remember you saying some of those things like, I need to walk, and we have goats, and that those kind of details are really fascinating to me, and they're helpful for us to help you pick the best property that we have available. Now, sometimes we'll have to say, I just don't have what you need. But what I love about you particularly is that you're accepting the reality of everything is not perfect. Like, some people will come onto a property like yours and go, "The rocks are everywhere." And I never know. Like, I never know if that's gonna be a problem with somebody or if that's not gonna be something that they really worry about. So, I have to say, "Okay, I'm listening to what you're offering me, and I'm gonna give you the best that's available, and then we're gonna just kinda work through this together," because I don't always know that there are rocks on the property, even though we do send a photographer out to every property. I don't always understand quite how deep they are. And I've seen you doing some of those videos where you were digging those up, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I think to myself, how could he like this property? But that is something that I really value, is that you know that there are things that are really working for you, and you allow some of those other things to not bother you so much. We had that same experience with that Chicago house. I was complaining about the water underneath, but I also left the house blessing it, saying, this house has served us so well. It was our first big house that we bought, and it was a chance for us to feel what homeownership felt like. And, in spite of all the things, there were many things that I didn't love about that house, but I still could love it overall in the essence of it. And that's what I hear about you talking about this land is, there's going to be warts and blisters on just about anything that you engage with in life. But if you choose to see the positive, it's really powerful.
Related from my 2 years of hiking over into land ownership, because I think I really had to learn this lesson pretty hardcore, is to embrace the suck. Because once you embrace the suck, you can start getting that vision to see it. Like I don't see the land that I'm on. What I see is the final product. Like I got a spot over here where I can put my garden. I got a spot over here. And even if you watch, you'll see like I've already got my whole land already pre-done and I already see what it looks like. And I think that sometimes maybe people come and they're so used to moving into a house that's already pre-done for them that they forget that it's a blank canvas and they can turn it in. It doesn't matter what it looks like right now. It's what can you turn it into. And Yeah, most definitely. So, moving on to the next segment, because we want to educate some people, make sure that whether they buy land from you or from anybody else, that we make sure to give them the right tools. So, my biggest question for you is, what are the biggest red flags when someone is buying raw land? Like when you go and you're looking at buying land. Um, you've been with investors and stuff. A lot of people are always worried about getting hustled and getting scammed. So, what kind of advice could you give on something like that?
This list ahead of time, but that's okay. I'll make it happen. So things that we watch for when we're choosing to purchase a property, we're looking for the elevation, whether there's a lot of hills or if it's on a total one-sided slope, and how people are gonna like, are they gonna put a trailer on this? Because if you've got a trailer and you've got only a sloped land, that's not gonna work out so great. You're gonna have some sort of pad or build up to make it more level. um, if it has a floodplain or if there's a wash that runs through it, especially in Arizona, we see some of those. We look for roads. Do they have access to the property, direct access to the property from a road that's drivable? Because many of those roads are maintained by the county and many are not. And in some cases, the county drew up the property grid lines and there were no roads. So you might be landlocked. You might have a property sitting in the middle of other properties that are owned by other people that you can't get to without driving through their land. So we watch for those things for sure. We look at things like what the property taxes are, if people have paid the taxes in that past. So we're looking for that title history. And we want to make sure that there's a clear passing of title from one person to another so that nobody else can come back and have a claim on it. Um, and let's see what else. We're looking for what the restrictions are. So we get to know every subdivision that we buy properties in, and we understand what the building restrictions are, and also how lax or strict the county enforcement is about those restrictions. Because most places have restrictions, is the truth. Like most places in the whole country have restrictions, but some are very loosely followed, and others are much more stringently followed. And some are followed with bias, with prejudice. So you really just want to understand what the norms of that area are. How do
I will say, I will add one more thing on there, because the thing that turned out to be really important was the corner posts, or at least the land having been surveyed at some point in time, because the because in the paperwork you get the GPS coordinates, but GPS can be off by as much as 50 feet. I was off by about 15. And luckily, I moved my trailer and everything else like that, and I was able to find all of the corner posts. But those are, it's very important that you at least look for them, find them. It's not easy to find them, because like the rocks are about this high, but also the it's only sticking out about that much, so it blends into the rocks and things like that. In people that will pull them out, because like that's why I'm missing one of my corner spikes. I think the guy across the street is actually illegally dumping, because he's actually in between two property lines that are owned by two different people. But people run them over with their vehicles and stuff like that. You'll see where people will sit there and put rock barriers around them. I've seen on a couple of your properties where they have like a second post and stuff like that to make it easier. But you should always look at finding your corner post, that way you can get a real idea of it, because you don't want to have the mistake I did, is kind of like you're just kind of guessing based upon GPS coordinates, and you end up halfway on somebody else's land by accident. So,
more about the contract? And I want to talk about some of the things that are in the contract. Um, so the 18-page contract that Kung Fu asked about, we have a few different check marks of things that we want to go through with you. We want to talk about the payments, of course. And so we spend a good page on the contract talking about, we have set this ceiling, this floor as your basic minimum payment, but you're welcome to pay more, and you won't have any interest or penalties for early payoff. And this could eventually lower the price of your property if you want to call us ahead of time and say, hey, I want to do a payoff. How much would I have to pay in order to finish this off? So that's a page of the contract. And then we have some fees, like we have a monthly $10 processing charge because we get charged by our processing company for those payments. And then we do prorated taxes. So those are the financials. But then I want to get to the property use. And that's where we get into this conversation about fence posts. So there's a whole page about what you can do and can't do on the property. And we don't want it to feel restrictive. This has actually changed, I believe, since you signed your contract, Tuck. So we've added a few things because we were having people who were wanting to go out and make changes to the property without talking to us. And the key thing that we really want you to do is talk to me. When I say us, it's really me and my husband, and we have one sales guy in Concho whose name is Mickey, and that's it. Like that's the whole company. And we have a couple of people who are now starting to do little VA work, but virtual assistant work. But it's the decision maker is me, and I'm the one who's usually talking to the customers and usually talking about the financing stuff. And so what we talk about in the restrictions page of what you can do with the land is we say, don't build a fence without asking us. The reason is we don't want you to build a fence on somebody else's property. So we really want you to be firmly within the boundaries of your property because of that 15-foot talk or 50-foot conversation that Tech was having about the GPS coordinates, or go get a survey. And we encourage you to go get a formal survey before you put up a fence that's going to take the entire space. Now, people want fences in your area because cows free range. And so you want to have a lot of, control over, do cows come through my property all the time? And, uh, you know, just bulls and other things, just you got to think about some of that stuff sometimes. Um, but we also have a request not to build anything permanent until you at least own half the equity in your property. And the reason for that, there's reasons for all these restrictions. The reason is that we don't want you to have cement pads that are put down or dig a hole and to put a foundation in for your house. And then you lose your job and you can't stay there anymore and you walk away. Now I've got the property, I've got a big hole in the ground, and maybe it doesn't match what anybody else wants. And now I've limited the selection of people who are going to be willing to buy this property. So I'm going to have to go and spend money to to do something about that. Or people leave their stuff and they just walk away. And Tuck has had an experience, he's witnessed one of my properties where that's happened. And so we have to do cleanup. So we're just asking in that extra page of the contract for you to be really clear about what you're going to do with that property while you're paying for it. After you own it, no problem. It's yours. You get to do what you want as far as I'm concerned. But while you still are paying us, we're asking that you not do things that are too permanent and that are going to disrupt any of the boundaries. For instance, somebody asked me to build a driveway, and we want to make sure that that driveway is going to be on the mail route if one day we ever have a mail carrier coming in down the roads to the properties and delivering mail directly instead of having to go to a post office. So we've got to think about some of those things, and we want to help you think through what those issues are. Septic tanks is another one. We want to make sure that you're following the county guidelines for, getting a septic perk test done and getting the septic planted and that it's qualified and not just building your own septic. So those are the kinds of things we put in the contract.
Are wondering, because I called and looked around, I was able to find all my posts. So, the guy, at least in Concho, if the land has never been surveyed, which means that there's no corner posts in there, he charges you $3,000. But if you can find at least one corner post, he will charge you $900 to come out and to do a full-on survey, unless you're able to find all four pegs. And then with the septic system, at least in Concho, from what I understand, it's $900 to do the tests that they do to decide whether or not they can even put in a septic system for you. So when you get to those points, those are a couple of costs that you can think about, and maybe even budging in over time. But that's just what I've learned being there. So my other question for you is, like, how are people actually losing money on land, and what could they do to avoid losing money on land?
Um, That's a hard one because there is this idea that you can overpay for land. Um, you certainly can. I don't know if I've got a good answer for that. I will say,
And like, what would like, it's probably the investor that's doing it? Would it just be probably an investor that doesn't understand the value of land and is trying to maximize, or like, you know, things like
yeah, so this is okay. Thank you for giving me a pause to kind of get my thoughts together on this. So we have an understanding that in the rural areas, the market is inefficient. So the supply is not steady, the demand is not steady. And it's because those two things are not connected to each other. And so that's where I, and open air properties and others like me find a space to create a market that becomes a little bit more efficient. So then we have an understanding of what the values are. And so it's really this because you've got this free market economy, when you get to these more populated areas, there's a lot more transactions. So then you can start to understand what are people paying for properties and what are people selling properties for. And so you see house like if you look on Zillow today, you see how house prices or property prices rise and fall, and they're going to go up like a percent or even 5% over a year, but they're not going to go crazy swings. Now, in the rural areas, you don't have that many data points. And so you don't have that many transactions. And those transactions are not published very well because when you're buying land for $8,000, it's not necessarily going to be on the realtor's purview because or radar because they're not going to make that much commission on it. So realtors just don't want to mess with land too much, especially rural land, because there's not a lot of people swirling around trying to buy. They don't have a steady pool of people to show properties to, and then they just don't make enough money to make it worth their time. So that's the brass tacks of the inefficiency of the market. So now you have people going to places like land sites and they're finding these areas and they're saying, well, okay, I'm going to sell you this for cash for $3,500. And then you got another person saying, well, I'm going to sell you this for terms where you can just buy $100 a month and it'll be $8,000. So it feels like those two are totally different, but really that's the cost of cash. And that's what you have to understand is you can spend three to $5,000 on the same property today, or you can pay $100 over time and not have to pay all that cash up front. And how much is that cash really worth? It's probably worth about 5%. So it seems like you're paying $8,000, but really you're just delaying your cash so that you can do other things with your cash while you're making those payments. And so that's the long version of why this feels like you could be getting a bad deal when maybe you are, maybe you aren't. It's very inefficient. It's just, people can put you can put a price on anything you want. That's the free market economy. So you can say, "Hey, I want this property for $35,000." Yeah, you can say you want it for $35,000, but you might not get anybody to buy it forever, like ever, because somebody can get the same property next door for $8,000. So we what we try to do at open air properties is qualify. So we do have a range of properties that have different prices and they have different features. And so some of them are more remote and they're going to be less. They're off grid, they're going to be less. Some of them are closer to town. They have water and power. They're going to be more. And we do that price differentiation so that you can have an understanding of what you're getting. In our Horseshoe Bend properties, we actually tend to go towards the top of the market price wise. And the reason why we do that is because we understand the value of what we're creating. Some people, when I first started, I charged almost $3,500 for every single property. But now I have a range from 3,500 up to 8,500. And it's really about location because what we started to notice as we did the research in these areas, land is the first thing you buy when you're choosing a property. I mean, that's a dumb moment, right? But when you're buying land that's 1 block from the lake or across the street from the lake, and it's the biggest lake in town, and the house next to you that has that same lot has now put a $400,000 um, house on it and they're renting it out for an Airbnb, then you're looking at this going, huh. And the very first thing that I'm paying for is location, 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 the biggest rule in real estate. So now I think, can I get the same value at 3,500 that I can get at this other place that's not close to a lake, that's on a dirt road, that barely has power, and it has floods that wash out the road every day? No, I shouldn't be charging 3,500 for both of those properties. I need to create a distinction because this $8,000 investment can create a $400,000 home. And that is a huge difference. Like the amount of money that you're paying extra for that as the foundation of what you're going to create in your vision, it's dramatically different. So we're making those value assessments on the location and what we think the potential of the property is, and still feeling like you're getting a very, very good deal because you're getting a lot at the lake.
Yeah, you get some that's yeah, the nicer the land is, the more fertile. Yeah, because you're paying for the resources, essentially the nutrients in the soil. And yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Smarter, we're giving our research the value that we think the properties deserve. And you're not going to find a lot of people who do that. Some people are just going to come in, they're just trying to go for volume. So they're just turning properties. They're like, I'll do it $3,500 all day long. Well, that's great, but you're kind of missing out on understanding what you're creating for your customer. So we're choosing to tell our customers and match our values and their values to the properties. So some people just want to go get the cheapest property they can. They don't care about being by a lake. They just want to build, drop a mobile home on it. Well, that's a different kind of property, and we have that for you. But we also have those properties going to create more value, and we're gonna offer you something that we know you're gonna is gonna meet your needs. So really lasts between 36 and 72 months. So 3 to 6 years. And it depends on the value of the property and all that stuff. So we do those higher value properties, we will allow them to go out because we generally want to keep our payments between 100 and 250. The 250 is about the highest that we go for a payment for a single lot. Um, we charge 349 to get started. So that's going to be a 249 doc fee and $100 towards the purchase of the property, the down payment. The doc fee takes some accounting for our time, for the development of the paperwork, which takes a little bit of time. It also accounts for the time that we spend helping you choose that right property and the maintenance of it all the way through to the end when we file the deed with the county recorder. So we do all that for you. You don't have to worry about understanding what even a county recorder is or how to prepare a deed properly for that county because they're all different. And then so that 349 gets you started. 1 month later, you start to make a payment. We'll actually deduct that generally from your checking account. I usually send a text a week before to say, "Hey, your payment's coming up next Friday, and let me know if you have any questions because we're gonna go ahead and take it." And we give you that chance to tell us, "You know what? My paycheck fell on Wednesday instead of a Friday. Can you wait till the next Wednesday?" So that we don't have that missed payment or the failed payment that costs both of us money. So that's really the main communication that we're going to have month to month is I'm going to send you a text every month to say your payment's coming out and you'll say back, "Yep, good to go," or "Hey, I've got a problem. Can you work with me on this?" And we always try to work with you because I'm not here to be a debt collector. I'm here to help you buy property. Um, the other piece of it is that, this goes about 3 years. And we have specials that come up. We offer referrals, bonuses for referrals. So if you bring other people and they do buy property, you get a month free on off of your payments. We offer video testimonials. So we have different ways that we want you to be able to, have extra perks that you can gain. Sometimes we'll give away things like, a chance to get a perk test. We did that last holiday season at the in December last year. So there's just different things that we try to offer that are making you more aware and comfortable. And then we also do some calls like this, like we're doing now, where we'll have buyers get on a conference call and just ask questions. And we might even bring a special speaker. Like one time for Horseshoe Bend, we brought a person who does perk tests, and he would tell us about some of the qualities that he looked for on a property to determine right away if it was going to perk or not, and if there was a good location for a septic tank. So we try to offer education to our buyer community to help them get started and understand how things work.
Perk test contests work? Because I think I must have missed that one.
Actually, a bonus, I can't remember. We had like a scavenger hunt on our website, and it said, "Go find these different deals and call us, and if you purchase a property and mention that you found this Easter egg basically in December on our website, that we would offer that opportunity for you to have like $1,000 towards a perk or something like that." And we may do more of that. I'm actually gonna plan to do more of that this year towards our current customers. We were doing it as a sales opportunity to, get you to buy with a special value. But yeah, I did a scavenger hunt, and you know what? Nobody looked at it. So so I decided that wasn't really my best tool, but I try a lot of stuff just to engage people, honestly.
Yeah, I know during that was a pretty busy month for me, but yeah, I would have, if I would have known that, yeah, if I would have been paying a little bit more attention, because yeah, that was right after I bought my land. I would have definitely participated in that, especially after I found out the cost. I'm like, yeah, hey, I want a free perk test. So that would
'Cause I want you to feel like you're part of our community, which you are, of course. And I want people to feel like this is doable. I want us to feel like we can do this together. We can figure out all the steps that we need to be landowners together. So
if you were to, okay, so somebody right now, they're watching and they say, I want to own land. We already know the first step is to reach out to you at openairproperties.net. But what is the smallest monthly payment someone could get started with right now? Because I think when I first looked, I saw some properties for like $75 a month. So what's your best prices on property, as far as if somebody's looking for a low payment, isn't really worried about the land as much as they are the payment?
dollars. So we have had 75 as a special, and we have had a property or two that were $75 because they were, lower value, they were more remote, that kind of thing. We may have those again. I won't say that we won't. Um, what I will say is there's never a better time than now because probably in January we're going to be raising our payments and our prices again. So, the values come up and we continually look at our comps and make sure that we're staying within market prices. And we do want to work with that. Now, from your community, Tuck, I want to be biased towards yes. And so I want to feel like if you have a person or if a person in the community wants to come to me and say, I really want to do this, here's my situation, the more transparent you can be with me, the more transparent I can be with you. So I'll give you the lowest price that I can and I'll try to work with you, understanding that this is still a business. I'm not a charity and we are doing business together and we have to both stand up and carry our own responsibilities there. So,
People that I have talked to that do buy land from you, and that's one of the number one things that I hear is like you're pretty flexible and you'll always meet them on their level. Which, if you're buying your first piece of land, especially like dealing with the finances of taking on a new payment, it's not like it's a car where you need it to get back and forth to work. You're buying it because you know you need it for the future. It's nice to know that there is somebody out there that is flexible, because yeah, even a recent friend of mine was telling me the story. I'm like, that's so awesome. That's why I love Stephanie to begin with, because if you guys are considering getting a piece of land, like I will say this until I'm blue in the face, you could do no better with Stephanie. She is, like, if you're looking for not just a good buying experience, but you're looking to be able to get a piece of land and know that if you need to reach out to her, because it's one of the biggest pluses working with her. is that there's a lot of communication. Even before Stephanie became a sponsor, there was I would talk to her at least once a month, sometimes more than that, depending upon how things were going. You return calls quickly. You're always on the ball and stuff like that. So, and the great thing nobody ever has to really worry about like, oh, I gotta call Stephanie, and then they kind of shriek back because nobody ever. It's just like you don't want to go talk to your boss. You don't want to that type of thing. Uh,
When they know they don't have the payment for the month, they don't wanna talk. And I try to never do guilt, I try to never do shame or just make people feel really uncomfortable because I want you to feel open to come to me and talk to me about things. I know life happens and, we wanna work through this together.
is you err on the side of humanity, which for somebody that does what you do, that's extremely rare because as I've tried to explain to friends, it's business, it's not personal. But you allow enough of a personal aspect that where it makes the buying experience really good.
The kudos that you've given me over the last few months, I just feel flattered and humbled by how very much you talk about us, and, we're just really honored to be a partner with you.
What you give, and you've given so much. It's I used to follow this group. It was called Creditors in Commerce, and the guy gets up and he tells a story. It's like, you go out there, you do for so many people, and things like that, and you're always giving, but every once in a while you'll have that person that comes up and they want to give you a gift. And at first he's like, no, 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 no. I don't need it, I'm good, I'm here to help you, until he finally realized, he's like, some people, they only know how to give back in certain ways. So bringing you a pie, bringing you a cake or something like that, that's their way of showing appreciation. So he starts talking about how you take that, you take it and you just go with it, because it's not whether or not you need it, it's to be able to acknowledge that these people appreciate you. And so in that same sense, that's why I do what I do for you, because you've done such an amazing job. Anybody that buys land from you and I talk to them afterwards, they're always extremely happy. I've been extremely happy, and I love chit chatting with you, whether it be in private or even on here, because I learn a lot, and it's you bring so much to the table. I'm glad that you do what you do, and that I was able to actually find you. But if when people are looking at getting land through you, go would you kind of talk about, because I know there's restrictions in Arkansas, some in Colorado, some in Arizona. What are the different restrictions, in case people are going like, I wouldn't mind owning land in one of those three, um, but maybe the restrictions might help change their mind in one direction or another.
Very bulletized caption for each one. So let's start with Arkansas because it's the most restrictive. Arkansas is a town that has 5 lakes in it. It does not have an elementary school. It's really meant to be a retirement community. That was meant way back in the 80s or 70s, even when they first developed the community. It has different neighborhoods, and those different neighborhoods are attached to different sizes of the lakes. And so the bigger the lake, the more that you have to build. But in all cases of our properties, at least, you do have to build something. They're not an RV friendly subdivision in the ones that we own. So they range from 600 square feet, where you can actually use a manufactured home or a mobile home, up to 1,400 square feet, where you cannot use a mobile home and it has to be a firm, construction build. So that's the most restrictive, but it's also, life on the lake. So a lot of people like that with trees and everything. Let's go over to Alamosa, Colorado. Alamosa is in the southern part of the state. It is close to the college town, as I said. Alamosa is a college town. It's 10 minutes out. It's desert land in front of the most gorgeous view of Mount Blanca you will imagine. It's the fourth tallest peak in Colorado. So you think about the Colorado Rockies. The water, as we mentioned earlier, is a little bit of a problem. So some properties you cannot dig a well, but in all properties you can have water delivered, just like we do in Concho, where you can have a storage facility and or storage tank and then have water delivered to you. They do allow RV living. It's $125 a year for an RV permit. and you just have to prove that you have a water source and a septic tank, or a septic source. They do offer portable septic as an option, and that just has to be approved. Um, the winters are cold there. They're bitterly cold, so you wanna make sure you have a winterized, living, unit, and that's about it for restrictions. There's not build restrictions in the Alamosa area. And then if you go over to Concho, it's a mix. So you have some neighborhoods that are off grid, truly, they have no power or water, and then others that do have power and water, and those do require a build. And many of the subdivisions in the Concho area technically say that you're supposed to build and that you can't live in the RV for more than a year, but the enforcement is very, very loose. So we have some that straight up say, yes, you can live in an RV, and others that say, no, you can't, but everybody is. You'll look around the neighborhood and you see that definitely people are living in RVs. Those covenants were built in 1977. They were developed in 1977 most of the time. So you just haven't had any updates um, in that area.
With this, because we're getting to that point, and I know you probably got some other stuff to do as well. What are you? Because I know tomorrow is usually the day you come out with specials. Do you have something that you're working on? And what, or like if you want to speak directly to the audience and make your final remarks if you'd like to.
Thank you again, Tuck, for all the very many positive comments that you've given to us because it just means so much. I mean, I appreciate it. I know there are people who are in the audience who have been thinking about land and looking at it at our websites for a few months now, even. And I just want to say, call me and let's talk. Maybe I don't have what you want, and if I don't, I will tell you that. If you do, have an idea for something that you want, let's talk about what your needs are because I can make custom arrangements for individuals, and I'm happy to do that if it works out. So today's special, it actually comes out usually on Friday, but sometimes I don't get it done until Saturday, but I try Friday. Today's special is 349 is the standard deposit. That's still the same, but you don't make any payments until September. So we're just basically giving you the first month with a skipped payment so that you can take time to get your payment together. Again, Tuck always has a standing offer of $50 off the deposit. So your deposit would be 299. Is that right? Yep, today. And then if you have other things that you're concerned about, we do offer the free switch. And I just want to say the best thing you can do is just call me up and let's have a conversation.
Stephanie, it's always great to have you, and I always look forward to our conversations, regardless of how they are. And just so you guys know, I'm sorry, say that again. Oh, yes, ma'am. Just so you guys know, go check out, peruse her properties. You can go to openairproperties.net. If you decide that you want to reach out to her, you can go over to the contact us page. And in that section, because I've checked out the page quite a few times, there is a place where you can put a promo code. And you put the promo code Friar Tuck, lets you know that lets her know that you're coming from my audience here. And as she said, she has a special affinity, so make sure that you mention Friar Tuck. That way, you can make sure that you're going to have the best experience possible. So I want to say thank you, Stephanie, for being here. I strongly encourage everybody to go visit Stephanie at openairproperties.net. And for all of you that showed up and had questions, we really appreciate you being here. And thank you for the questions that you asked. It helped move this broadcast along. Thank you guys for being here, and I will see you tonight at 5:30 Eastern Standard Time. I might be a little bit late because I got something to do that may make me about a few minutes late, but we will be doing our Spiritual Friday today, and we're going to be talking about self-love. So if you're interested in that topic, you want to show up tonight, I will see you tonight at 5:30 Eastern. If you're part of the Green Room, we always start the Green Room 30 minutes before, so you're always encouraged. You can once you get a membership over on Patreon, that will open up the green room. I post it in the post page so that you can see it. And I look forward to seeing you guys tonight. Thank you, Stephanie. You have a great rest of your day.